Greetings and salutations to you all once again. It is me, the Ravenous Spectre, and this is a little bit of a, I guess I wouldn't necessarily say it was a rant, but it's something that I definitely wanted to get off of my chest. And, of course, we've ended up having, newer consoles that have ended up coming out recently. Well, not recently, actually, the PS4 Pro is already out, but the Xbox One Scorpio is a different matter and is supposed to be out sometime this year. My whole thing on that is it really irks me when it deals with these new systems. Reason being is if Sony and Microsoft, and I would think especially Microsoft, especially as how much software and things that Microsoft puts out, that they would have known that the hardware that they were putting out wasn't on par with, say, the gaming PCs of today, because that is the market that they're also trying to compete against. I mean, even Sony has mentioned it themselves on how they wanted to bring people who were gaming on PC or who were thinking about going to PC over to PS4, or bring them back to PS4 again because of the hardware limitations. And the fact is if you don't have competition, then things aren't going to grow. You aren't going to have these amazing titles coming out, these amazing exclusives, all of that. Everything can't be the same, but the fact is, I would think that considering multi-billion-dollar companies would actually want to try to put the best hardware that they possibly can into their systems so that they can compete with other systems like with PC and whatnot. Now, obviously, you're going to end up having more consoles or closed systems. This is true, and it's obviously not as open as PC is. But the fact is I still believe it's all based upon personal preference. But I still believe that if Sony and Microsoft would have really just bumped up the hardware right along the specs of where PC gaming is nowadays, because PC gaming had really been picking up over a period of time, and if Sony and Microsoft would have actually known that, which I'm pretty sure they did, but I believe that greed was a thing that came in their way. If they ended up realizing that they would have been no need for the PS4 Pro or the Xbox One Scorpio. I'm not bothering with a Pro. I'm not bothering with a Scorpio. I'm going to keep what I have until they die. Plain and simple. And when they die, maybe then I'll end up picking up the newer versions, if you will. I mean, yeah, I would get a PS4 Pro if my PS4 died, but I'm pretty much done with Xbox because they don't know how to keep exclusives to save their life. They don't know how to actually bring people to their console, and that was one reason why PS4 was beating them out so badly, and I think one reason is because of the exclusives. But the fact of the matter is yeah, Xbox had actually picked up some ahead of PS4 sales, but the fact is I mean, I don't think that really happened until the Xbox One S, or Slim if you want to call it, came out. But the fact is I mean, I can't get behind it, man. It is just, to me, it's either, really though, I think that Sony and Microsoft probably had all this in mind before they even went and put out the Xbox One and the PS4. But, I mean, that's the way companies are, man. They try to make a dollar one way or another. It's just you and me as being savvy consumers on whether or not we give into it or not. Plain and simple. It's just like I've ended up putting a boycott against PS Plus and also Xbox Live because of the fact that the price that's there is for one, to me, is too high. For two, having to pay to play online is fucking bullshit. And three, the services that you get out of those ain't really worth 2 cents as far as I'm concerned. But that's my own personal preference. And the fact that Sony and Microsoft is bringing out this new console, I'm boycotting against those because I see no reason for them. Oh, wow, you get a higher resolution. You get 4K this and 4K. I don't give a shit. I really do not give a shit. I can be just as fine and peachy keen with 1080p. I don't care, man. As long as the game looks good. I mean, really, it seems like nowadays it's all about, let's see what resolution we can get. Let's see how pretty we can make it. Let's look at the graphics. Let's not really focus on the gameplay. It just really seems to me like that. I mean, yeah, of course, gameplay matters because it's a freaking game, for crying out loud. But it seems like there's so much emphasis put on, oh, wow, we need to make this look pretty, or we need to make this look pretty, and this and that and the other. And while I can get behind the fact of, yeah, you want to be on par with it all, you really need to focus on the games. that's the main thing. And the fact that PC has pretty much just, I mean, obviously, if you end up building a PC, a gaming PC, it's going to end up blowing the consoles out of the water in terms of power. And I mean, this is coming from someone who's a console gamer. This is coming from someone who, yes, does have a gaming PC, but they game mostly on consoles. And the fact of the matter is, I don't agree with this. I don't at all. I mean, like I mentioned before, when it boils down to the technology, that's all well and good to try to stay on par with things. But I just feel like that there's such a hassle and a fight that's going on between people. Like, oh, 4K this and 4K that and 1080p this and 1080p that. I mean, yeah, of course you want to be on par with the times in terms of technology. I don't deny that. But the fact that it seems like companies are focusing more on that than they are actually on the games themselves, which obviously nowadays games require a lot more power and they're a lot more in depth in terms of their visuals and gameplay content and like that than it was back in the day, or like the early 2000s and the 90s and 80s and whatnot, so on and so forth. But I just really had to get this out on how I don't agree with these. And, especially like when GameStop was having a thing going, I was like, oh, well, you could trade this in and you could get this amount of money off of this new system and all this stuff, when in actuality, it's not really worth the piss. It's not. But the fact is if you ended up having it where it would go into being something that would be, like something that would completely blow the previous consoles out of the water. And if that's the case, then I can understand people probably dropping the amount of money on them. But from what I've heard from both sides of it, it's not really worth it. Not to mention the fact that if you don't have an Xbox One, they said obviously go with the slim version because of stuff and things, whatever the hell. I'm not getting into all the logistics and all the other stuff dealing with that. But the fact is, yeah, if you don't have an Xbox One, get the S, because obviously it's smaller, it's more compact, it's quieter, and I guess, and all this other stuff. And even then, if you don't have a PS4, then yeah, go with the Pro, because of the fact that it has some, extra features or content or whatever on it. You see, this just gets to me, man. I mean, if something, I'm really just a person where I'm going to wait until my consoles just dry up and die unless there's some valid reason for me to get a newer version or whatever. And that would be a valid reason for me to go ahead and just, if my console dies, well, I'll buy the newer version. But I'm not doing this trading thing. I'm not doing, oh, gosh, man. It's just, it just really, it irks me dealing with that. I mean, I could probably ramble on and on, which I've rambled on long enough about this, and I've, trying to just get all of my thoughts and things out about it. But yeah, I mean, focusing on the games and exclusives and all of that, and just trying to stick with one specific console instead of trying to make these upgrades and all this stuff. In reality, even if you had a gaming PC, if you wanted to upgrade it, you'd probably only have to spend like a couple $100 or something for like a new graphics card. I mean, yeah, you'd have to make sure that your guts and everything were all intact, but if you ended up doing that, you still would end up having a better graphics card than you would on the current consoles. And those consoles want to go and charge you anywhere between like $300 to $500, or I guess if you get a bundle or something, just for you to be able to go and have a little bit more of a powerful system. I'm just like, obviously this is coming from a console gamer, and I mean, yeah, I'm harping on Sony and Microsoft about this, because if you just look at the technology and know that these are multi-billion-dollar companies, and they can't understand the PC market and PC gaming market to be able to try and compete with them on some level, then it blows my mind. If they could just stick with the fact like, hey, yeah, these are our consoles, this is what we're going to stick with for the next 5 to 7 years or whatever, you can like it, here's our games, here's our exclusives, so on and so forth. Yeah, it's not as powerful as a gaming PC, but what the hell ever, these are the games, these are the experiences we want to bring you, and that's that. I'd be perfectly fine with that. I'd be I'd be fine with it. But the fact is it's just like hardware this, hardware that, pay more money for this, pay more money for that. And I'm just like, if you would have had it right the first time, knowing that you're technology companies, then you would have never had to deal with this to begin with. But then again, like I said, I believe that Xbox and Sony had this in mind to begin with. And then when they thought the time was right, that's when they announced their newer consoles, just so that they can go ahead and rip more money out of the consumer. You know, I mean, I mainly play on PlayStation, but when I call bullshit out on a company, I call bullshit. Whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Sony, whether it's Nintendo, what the hell ever, man. You know, I mean, or whether it's like Nvidia or AMD when it deals with the PC market and graphics card and all that. But I have some friends of mine that are more in depth in terms of PC gaming than I am, but I'm still learning as time goes on. But the fact is yeah, it's ridiculous because it's always like, well, who has, it almost seems like who has the biggest bat in the yard, so to speak, and who's going to end up gathering the most followers, if you will, and who get the most consumers kind of thing. And I'm just sitting there shaking my head. I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to stick with my original consoles, and y'all can have those newer consoles. If you don't have one, it's understandable to buy a new one. But if you already have an original one, it's like, don't get it. Just don't. If you get it for free, well, you get it for free. But if you don't trade it, don't sell it, don't, I don't know. That's just how I see it. It's just a matter of trying to bite back against these idiotic business practices. And yeah, I mean, but Sony, it almost seems like Sony and Microsoft know what they're doing, if you will. But in my opinion, in a way, they don't. But anyways, I digress on that. I'm not going to ramble and rant about it anymore. I just had to get all of this out. But if you guys have any thoughts or comments or anything, leave them below and we'll get a little discussion going on. So I will talk at you taters later. Later, taters.